أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Suzy Ismail from Cornerstone, and I'm happy to be with you again in our Ramadan Resilience Program. We've talked quite a bit about mental health, emotional health, and the outcomes of those elements that we may experience internally. Now we've been diving into some of the environmental factors. What are the triggers? What happens externally that can lead to internal turmoil, that can lead to us feeling unsettled or experiencing anxiety or depression or any of the other states of being that we've mentioned? So in our last episode, we began to touch a little bit about emotional intelligence and the increasing of empathetic awareness and orientation in our interactions with others. Now, the first space in which we often learn about our emotions and how we feel is in the space of living with our parents. For those of us who may have grown up in a home where we had two parents who exhibited love and care towards one another, who truly acted upon mawadda wa rahma, compassion and mercy in their interactions with one another, we may grow to be very secure in ourselves and in our own relationships. Now, sometimes when we grow up in an atmosphere where that sense of security is shaken, where maybe our parents are harsh with one another, maybe we are raised in a single-parent household, maybe we are raised by grandparents, by foster parents, by adoptive parents, maybe there is something that we are struggling with, regardless of the iteration of parenting, but something within the household that causes us tension. Our foundational roots of security may be shaken. And we can also see that this shaking up of the foundational roots can carry over into generations to come. Now, it's not just about the well-being or the emotional output of the children and how they grow older, but it's also about the parental response and how parents themselves react to the tensions, the stresses, the high levels of emotion that come with being a parent. And we know that it begins from when the child is in the womb. And it begins from the moment of conception when a parent begins to think about what type of parent do I want to be. And for many of us who are parents or who look to our own parents, we may see moments in which our own parents or we ourselves as parents stop ourselves and say, wait, that's not the kind of parent I want to be. But maybe we don't know how to change it. Maybe we don't know how to respond to it. And this is often due to generational trauma. So if you've grown up in a household where there is a lack of respect between parent to parent or between parent to child, you may find yourself replicating that. How many times as parents do we speak to our children and suddenly we stop and we're like, wait a second, I sound exactly like my mom, or wow, that sounds like something my dad would say. And it's a beautiful gift that we can take from our parents, but it can also be a challenge and a test that we take from our parents. Because as Ali radiallahu anhu said, that when we raise our children, we don't want to raise each generation the way that we were raised, because each generation will have their own problems and their own experiences. We see this today often with the struggle between parents and the cell phones that their children may have, or social media. Growing up, for the generation that preceded the current generation of, youth, teens, young adults, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have social media. And so we may be trying to parent from a place of a lack of understanding. And that impacts our empathy. It impacts the way that we interact with our children. We may find ourselves being highly critical towards our children. We may find ourselves verbally lashing out. Also, as parents, if we haven't taken care of our own emotional baggage, if we haven't unpacked anger that we may be carrying with us from our past, that anger will resurface. And it will resurface in how we respond to our children. This too is generational trauma, because we will traumatize our children, and our children in effect will traumatize their own children unless we break the cycle. And breaking the cycle means understanding that there is help, that there are ways that we can work through this trauma, that it doesn't need to be on repeat over and over again. And again, I've repeated this a few times in our episodes, but it's so important to understand that the first step is awareness. Recognize that you have a problem. And the problem may be of a mental health nature, it may be of a social nature, it may be of a relational nature or an emotional nature. Identify the problem, be aware of it, and then seek out avenues as to how to tackle that problem. Together, we're going to continue tackling the problems and understanding how to respond to it. We're also going to take a deep dive into some resources. Where can you go to get that help? But join us by watching ITVusa every day in Ramadan for these continued episodes. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.